Do you recognize that person there?
No.
Have you ever seen that person before?
No.
Is that Ashley?
No.
Is that your daughter?
No.
Today they have officially charged Deandre Booker with first-degree murder, which is great news for the family.
Imagine opening your phone and reading the last message from someone you love. Just 4 words. I'll be home soon. You expect the door to open any minute. You expect the sound of keys, footsteps, maybe even laughter. But the hours pass, then the night, then the entire next day, and that person never comes back. That was the reality for the family of Ashley Elkins, a vibrant 30-year-old mother of 2, who vanished without a trace in January 2025. What began as a missing persons case quickly unraveled into something far darker, a story of blood, bleach, and a trail of evidence that led straight into the pipes in an apartment bathroom. This is not just another crime story. This is about love, family, betrayal, and a haunting question that still lingers. Where is Ashley Elkins? Who is Ashley Elkins? Before we dive into the chilling night of her disappearance, let's step back and talk about who Ashley really was. Ashley wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't famous. She was one of us, someone juggling the demands of everyday life. A hairstylist by profession, a mother of 2 young children, and, as her family describes, the glue that held everyone together. She had a personality that filled a room. Friends remember her as funny, loyal, and always ready to help. Her children remember her hugs, her cooking, and the way she could make them laugh even when times were tough. Ashley's family has said repeatedly, she wasn't perfect, but she was ours. And that's the thing. True crime cases often focus on the darkness, the perpetrators, the trial. But at the center of this story is a woman who lived a real life filled with love and responsibility. The last day, it was January 2nd, 2025, the day after New Year's. For many families, it was a time of fresh starts, resolutions, and recovery from holiday celebrations. For Ashley, it seemed like just another busy day. She went out to pick up some supplies, messaged her sister from a beauty supply store, and promised she'd be back soon. Those words would become the final communication her family ever had from her. By that evening, her family expected her home. When she didn't show, they worried but thought maybe she had plans, maybe she was delayed. But as hours turned into the next morning and her phone went silent, alarm bells rang. Ashley wasn't the kind of person to just disappear. She had responsibilities, her children, her job, her commitments. For her not to check in was immediately suspicious. On January 3rd, her family officially reported her missing. That's when the search began. The immediate suspect. Whenever a woman goes missing, investigators almost always look first at the people closest to her, partners, exes, or anyone with intimate access to her life. In Ashley's case, suspicion fell almost immediately on her ex-boyfriend, Deandre Booker. They shared history, they shared conflict, and crucially, her car was found parked near his apartment in Roseville, Michigan. When detectives questioned him, his story didn't add up. He gave answers that contradicted each other. He seemed evasive. Within days, police arrested him. Not yet for murder, but for something telling, lying to police. That arrest was the first signal that Ashley's case wasn't just a simple disappearance. Something darker was unfolding. A mother, a sister, a daughter. For Ashley's family, those first few days were hell. Her mother clung to her phone, waiting for a call. Her sister replayed the last text over and over. Her children asked questions no mother ever once left unanswered. When is mommy coming home? The hardest part of the early days was the uncertainty. Was she alive? Was she hurt? Was she being held somewhere? Or was the unthinkable already true? That vacuum of answers creates a psychological torture that only families of the missing truly understand. Every ring of the phone jolts your heart. Every knock at the door makes you jump. You pray for news but dread what that news might be. And in Ashley's case, the news that came next would be almost unbearable. The apartment search. Investigators obtained a warrant to search Booker's apartment. What they found inside changed the course of the case forever. There were bloodstains, not just a drop here or there, but multiple spots. In the bathroom, on the vanity, in the hallway, there was a handgun hidden beneath a couch. There were cleaning supplies scattered around, including bottles of bleach. Detectives quickly realized they weren't looking at a simple disappearance. They were standing inside a crime scene. And then came the most haunting discovery, when they dismantled the apartment's plumbing. Inside the pipes, they found a clump of hair, an earring, and what appeared to be a corroded bullet fragment. Imagine that for a second. Violent, so severe that traces of it traveled through the pipes, lodged in the drains, impossible to scrub away completely. It's the kind of detail that makes even seasoned detectives shudder. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was something far worse. The dumpster video. Outside the apartment complex, investigators pulled surveillance footage. What they saw added another chilling layer. The video showed a man, prosecutors say it was Booker, pushing a shopping cart toward a dumpster. Inside the cart was a large object wrapped tightly in a white sheet. And as the cart tipped, something seemed to shift inside. For a moment, what looked like an arm could be seen beneath the covering. Later, when police searched that dumpster, they found traces of blood. Even without a body, even without a confession, the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to take shape. The digital trail. In modern investigations, one of the first places police look is a suspect's phone and computer. And in this case, what they found on Deandre Booker's phone was chilling. Just hours before Ashley vanished, Booker's search history was filled with disturbing queries. Detectives discovered he had been Googling phrases like, how to get rid of blood, how long before a body smells, how to clean a crime scene. Each search read like a step-by-step manual for covering up a murder. Prosecutors would later argue that these searches weren't random. They were intentional, calculated, and damning. They painted a picture of a man who not only committed a horrific act, but actively planned how to erase it. It's one thing to find physical evidence, blood, hair, bullet fragments. But digital evidence tells you the mindset of the suspect. And in this case, Booker's phone told a story of someone preparing for the unthinkable, building the timeline. Let's piece together the timeline as investigators believe it happened. January 2nd, 2025. Afternoon, Ashley texts her sister from the beauty supply store, promising to be home soon. Later that evening, her car is spotted near Booker's Roseville apartment. Night. Neighbors recall hearing a loud bang, possibly a gunshot, coming from Booker's unit. Shortly after, security cameras capture Booker moving a heavy, sheet-wrapped object in a shopping cart toward the dumpster. Next morning, January 3rd, Ashley is reported missing. January 4th onward, police begin searching Booker's apartment, uncovering blood, bleach, and weapons. Piece by piece, investigators were connecting the dots. Forensics don't lie. Here's where forensic science made the difference. The blood found in the bathroom, DNA tests confirmed it belonged to Ashley Elkins. The hair clump found in the pipes, also Ashley's. The earring, one that her family instantly recognized as hers. And that bullet fragment lodged in the drain, forensic analysts determined it matched the caliber of the handgun hidden under Booker's couch. Think about that for a moment. Even after attempts to clean, scrub, and bleach, the truth seeped through, literally into the plumbing. Booker may have thought he could wash away the evidence, but science had other plans. The arrest. Initially, Booker was only arrested for lying to police, but as the evidence piled up, the charges escalated. He was soon charged with first-degree murder, tamper with evidence, and weapons violations. But there was still one huge problem. Ashley's body had not been found. And that brings us to one of the hardest aspects of this case, prosecuting a no-body murder trial, the weight of a no-body case. In the U.S., securing a murder conviction without a body is rare, but not impossible. It requires overwhelming evidence that the victim is dead and that the suspect is responsible. Prosecutors lean heavily on the blood evidence, the video footage, the gun, and the Google searches. They argued that the sheer volume of Ashley's blood in the apartment indicated she could not have survived her injuries. Still, for Ashley's family, the lack of a body was devastating. They wanted answers. They wanted a place to grieve. They wanted closure. Instead, they had uncertainty and a courtroom battle that would force them to relive every horrific detail. The courtroom drama begins when the trial opened in Macomb County. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, family members, and true crime followers filled the benches. The prosecution painted a picture of premeditation and brutality. They described the Google searches, the attempts to bleach the apartment, the shopping cart video, and the forensics. The defense, meanwhile, argued that without a body, there was no definitive proof of murder. They tried to cast doubt on whether the blood was truly fatal, whether the video really showed an arm, whether Ashley could still be alive somewhere. But then came a moment that left the entire courtroom stunned. Booker's explosive outburst during one of the hearings. As prosecutors described the evidence against him, Booker suddenly snapped. He shouted across the courtroom, his voice echoing off the walls. "You don't know what you're talking about. I didn't kill her." He pounded the defense table, forcing deputies to restrain him. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Ashley's family sat frozen, tears in their eyes. For many observers, that outburst said more than any piece of evidence could. It revealed a man under pressure, a man who couldn't control his temper, a man whose guilt was cracking through the surface. The family's pain. While lawyers battled over technicalities, Ashley's family endured the unendurable. Her mother spoke softly in interviews, saying, "Every night I pray for my baby. I pray she didn't suffer. I pray for her children, who cry themselves to sleep asking for her." Her sister said, "We have to sit in that courtroom and hear about blood, about bullets, about dumpsters. But what we really want is Ashley. We want her back." Her children were too young to fully understand, but they knew something was wrong. They knew their mother was gone, and no amount of evidence or arguments could fill that absence. A case that grips the public. As details of the case spread, people across Michigan, and even beyond, became captivated. On Reddit's crime forums, threads with thousands of comments debated every detail. The blood evidence, the Google searches, the lack of a body. On TikTok and YouTube, creators posted updates, theories, and timelines. Why? Because this case had everything that makes true crime both horrifying and compelling. A missing young mother, a suspect with chilling behavior, and a mystery that still leaves questions unanswered. Most haunting of all was a question: where is Ashley's body? Even with everything pointing to Booker, that answer remained missing. And without it, the family's grief could never truly heal.
So I texted her and said, I had a dream that your car was taken. And she said, "Oh man." I said, "Oh man." So what I did was FaceTime her. She didn't say anything, which was strange to me. And then I said to her, "Well, be careful, watch your surroundings." Nothing after that.
The courtroom tension. By the time the trial reached its final weeks, the courtroom had become a stage. Every seat was filled, every eye fixed on a man at the defense table, Deandre Booker. Ashley's family sat only a few feet away, forced to listen as defense lawyers tried to dismantle her very existence. Each day, they held hands, clutching tissues, silently praying that justice would finally be delivered. And for the jury, the pressure was immense. They weren't just deciding guilt or innocence. They were deciding whether Ashley Elkins, daughter, sister, mother too, would ever be recognized as a victim of murder in the eyes of the law. Prosecution's closing argument. When the prosecution delivered their closing arguments, the room fell into a heavy silence. The lead prosecutor stepped forward, holding up photos of Ashley, smiling with her kids. He began, "Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley is not just missing. She is gone. And the evidence shows that this man sitting before you is responsible." He then laid out the key points. The blood evidence, too much for survival, confirmed by DNA as Ashley's. The hair and jewelry, tangible links to her inside Booker's apartment. The bullet fragment matched to Booker's weapon. The dumpster video, a human arm visibly hanging from the sheet. The Google searches, a roadmap of premeditation. He ended with a line that hit the jury hard. Ashley's children will grow up without their mother because of his actions. Do not let him erase her. Give her the justice she deserves. Defense strategy. The defense faced an uphill battle. Their only real weapon was doubt. They reminded the jury that Ashley's body had never been found. They argued that without a body, there was no definitive proof of death, let alone murder. They suggested the blood evidence could have been from injury, that the video footage was grainy and unclear, that the Google searches didn't prove intent. One defense lawyer told the jury, "This case is built on assumptions. Without a body, without cause of death, you cannot convict a man of murder." It was a desperate attempt. But sometimes, desperate attempts are all it takes to sway even one juror. Waiting for the verdict. When the case finally went to the jury, the courtroom emptied into the halls. Families, reporters, and attorneys paced anxiously. Ashley's mother held on to her daughter's picture, whispering prayers. Booker sat stiffly, expression cold, his eyes fixed on the floor. Hours passed, then a full day. The tension was unbearable. And finally, the words everyone had been waiting for. We have a verdict. The verdict. The courtroom filled again, hearts racing. The jury filed in stone-faced. The judge asked the foreperson, "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." The foreperson handed the slip of paper to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. The room held its breath. On the charge of first-degree murder, guilty. On the charge of tampering with evidence, guilty. On the charge of weapon possession, guilty. Ashley's family burst into tears. Some cried silently. Others sobbed openly, clutching each other in relief. For them, it wasn't closure, not without Ashley's body, but it was justice. Booker, meanwhile, sat stone still, his jaw clenched, his eyes flashing anger but showing no remorse. The judge thanked the jury for their service. The gavel struck. And just like that, Deandre Booker's fate was sealed. Sentencing day. Weeks later, the courtroom filled once again, this time for sentencing. Family members were allowed to give victim impact statements. One by one, Ashley's loved one stood before court. Her sister's voice shook as she said, "We will never hear her laugh again. Her children will never feel her hug again. You didn't just take Ashley from us. You took our light, our joy, our future memories." Her mother looked directly at Booker, her hands trembling. "You left my grandbabies without a mother. You left us searching dumpsters and rivers. You left us with nightmares. I hope you sit in that cell every day and remember what you did to my baby." Finally, the judge delivered the sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Booker didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He didn't look at the family. He just stared ahead, a man who had lost everything but refused to admit his guilt. After the verdict, for Ashley's family, the verdict was a victory, but not the end, because there was still one haunting question. Where is Ashley? Her body has never been found. Despite extensive searches of landfills, rivers, and wooded areas, her remains remain missing. That absence continues to weigh heavily on her family. Even in their relief, even in their celebration of justice, there's a hollow ache, a missing piece, a wound that can't fully close. The psychological impact. Cases like this leave scars far beyond the courtroom. For Ashley's children, the trauma is unimaginable. They must grow up without their mother, carrying questions and grief far beyond their years. For a family, every birthday, every holiday, every milestone is bittersweet, a reminder of what they've lost. And for the community, Ashley's case serves as a chilling reminder that violence can happen anywhere, to anyone. But it also shows the power of perseverance, of investigators who didn't give up, of prosecutors who built a case without a body, and of a family who refused to let Ashley's story be forgotten. After the trial, when the sentence was read, life without parole, the headline spread quickly. News outlets covered it as one of the rare no-body murder convictions. For many, It was proof that even without a body, justice can still be served. The evidence, the blood, the searches, the surveillance footage, painted a picture too strong to deny. But for Ashley's family, the victory was bittersweet. They didn't get to bring her home. They didn't get to bury her, to say a final goodbye, to have a place to visit on birthdays and anniversaries. Her mother later said in an interview, "We got justice, but we still don't have Ashley. And until we do, our hearts won't fully rest." Public reaction. The case sparked huge discussions online. True crime forums, blogs, even Reddit crime threads lit up with debates. How could someone commit such a brutal crime in plain sight? Why do abusers get so many chances before law enforcement steps in? And how do families keep hope alive without a body? Some called it a victory for the justice system. Others said it highlighted a terrifying reality, that people can vanish without a trace, and sometimes we may never truly know what happened. The lingering mystery. Even with Booker behind bars, one haunting question remains. Where's Ashley? Detectives believe her body was likely destroyed or hidden in a way that makes recovery nearly impossible. Landfills were searched, rivers dragged, wooded areas combed, but still nothing. For Ashley's children, this is the hardest part. They know their mother is gone, but they don't have a grave to visit, no final resting place to talk to her, to cry, to remember. It is an absence that echoes louder than any courtroom verdict. Lessons and warnings. Ashley's story is not just a tragedy. It's also a warning, because her relationship with Booker wasn't healthy. There were red flags, jealousy, control, verbal aggression. These signs are often dismissed in the beginning, but they can escalate into something far worse. Experts in domestic violence say cases like Ashley's highlight the importance of listening to your gut, recognizing controlling behavior, and seeking help early. And for communities, it's a call to action. Pay attention. Don't ignore screams next door. Don't dismiss the "it's just an argument" excuse. Sometimes those arguments end in silence. The psychological weight of no-body cases. Legally, no-body cases are incredibly rare, but also incredibly powerful. They force juries to think differently, to connect dots, to trust forensic science, to accept that absence can sometimes scream louder than presence. For families, though they are torture, the human mind craves closure. We need rituals, funerals, burials, goodbyes. Without them, grief becomes an open wound. Ashley's family carries that wound every day, and yet they choose to speak out, to share her story, to make sure her name is not forgotten. A mother, a daughter, a sister. Let's not forget who Ashley Elkins really was. She wasn't just a victim or a name in court documents. She was a mother who adored her kids, a daughter who lit up her family's world, a woman who had dreams, laughter, and love. Her life mattered. Her story matters. And telling it keeps her alive in memory, even when her body has never been found. So here we are, years later. Booker sits in prison, serving a life sentence. Ashley's family still waits for the day they might finally bring her home. And the haunting reality is this. Sometimes justice is incomplete. Sometimes, even when the system works, it can't mend the hole left behind. But maybe, just maybe, sharing Ashley's story helps. Because every time we say her name, every time we remember her, we remind the world that she wasn't just a case file. She was a person, and she still deserves to be found. Thank you for watching. If Ashley's story moved you, share this video, not for views, but for her memory. Every share, every comment, every conversation keeps Ashley's name alive. And if you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, please don't wait. Seek help, because silence can be deadly, and every life, like Ashley's, matters